Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Entrepreneurs in Small Rooms Drinking Coffee. I'm your host, Rob Kennedy, and this is where we talk to entrepreneurs about building their tech startups, typically small or medium-sized companies. Boy, that was really great. Small or medium-sized tech startups, about the trials and tribulations of building a tech company. We're at the working group, who's been kind enough to host us. And today we have on Matthew Slutsky of BuzzBuzzHome. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us. Do you want to tell everyone what BuzzBuzzHome is?
For sure. Although I should start by letting everybody know, if you're listening, that this is actually not a small room. We're actually in a very nice, beautiful room. So don't think that we're stuck in a little box. That was how I was imagining when I was coming here, and I'm kind of blown away by this beautiful room. So BuzzBuzzHome, we are North America's largest listing of all new residential construction. So all new condos, townhomes, subdivisions. Basically, if you know real estate and you've heard of MLS, we are MLS for new construction. And it's something that new construction actually isn't listed on MLS. So we found this nice little niche about 4.5, 5 years ago now, and made a run for it, and started in downtown Toronto, and branched off with an office in Vancouver, and took over all of Canada, and about 1.5 years ago we launched an office in New York and Soho, which leads our US expansion.
That's pretty cool. So 4.5, 5 years ago when you started, you were sitting around and you're like, you know what needs help? Real estate, and I know how to fix real estate. Or how did you even find this as a problem?
Yeah, so I was actually in land development. I was VP of development for a luxury condo builder in Toronto called Diamante, and literally saw this gap. I mean, we were spending $30,000 a week in print ads and A-frames, and A-frames are sandwich boards, and magazine, all this stuff. And it was around the time that online was really starting to take off. So we didn't put much money into our website, yet people were coming to the website. People were Googling, they would see an ad and they wouldn't just come to the sales center, they'd Google it first, and really nothing would show up. So I realized that there's a huge hole there. I mean, and this is something that I thought, was a huge hole, not just in Toronto. I quickly looked around, it was a hole in North America, it was a whole worldwide, wherever, I was able to look for English speaking sites. So, okay, here's something that really needs to be fixed. And again, I had a really cushy job, high-paying job, and thought, I was really naive, I think, and thought, okay, well, have a small team and we'll take over the world. Right. It was a great thought at the time. And that's what I did. I left my job. I ended up partnering with my business partner, Cliff Peskin. I left completely. He was still running his own company, which about 1 year later he sold to a U.S. company.
Real estate related?
No, it was actually nutrition related. He started kind of diet food delivery in Toronto, in Montreal. So he had a great kitchen, and he had a team of chefs, and they would cook everyone's meals, deliver it to their house first thing in the morning, and then they'd have these healthy meals. The really cool thing about what he did was he managed a team that built a great back end for his system. So again, it was kind of the starting days of people really using the internet and online, and he created this awesome system where he was allowing people a certain amount of, I don't know what it was, calories a day or whatever. People were able to log on and actually customize their own meals per day, and it would work out to be within that range. Then his chefs would get a printout of all the ingredients they need for the day,
right.
And then they would go and they'd make all the food. So really forward-thinking technological guy. I have no tech experience,
right.
And again, Cliff's not a engineer or a software engineer,
sure.
But he sees
technology.
the future really well, and sees where things need to go. So partnered with Cliff and started BuzzBuzzHome.
So that's interesting. I think there's two kinds of sort of approaches when you want to start a thing. Either you have a technology and you're like, what problem does this solve? It's magical, it predicts the future, but who could use this? Or there's the way you went about it, which is you're like, there's clearly a hole here in the market and I need to solve this problem. The other interesting thing is when you're in that space, you don't necessarily have people who get that there is a problem to be solved. You might see the problem. Getting people on board to actually say, oh yeah, I totally get that the web is a thing and I should be on the web. How did you get people to sort of buy into the idea?
Yeah, that it's funny because that was a really tough part of it, especially when I was launching. I had this idea and I was leaving my company, but before I left the other company, or maybe it was around the same time, I went out to people in the industry and I was like, I've got this idea. What do you think about it? And there wasn't that much buy-in. I mean, people were builders were like, well,
did they not get it, or they're like, that's just stupid?
Well, a lot of builders I spoke to who I was close with were like, this already exists. And I'd be like, no, I don't think it does. And they'd be like, yeah, it does. I actually pay for it. We're launching a condo right now, and we're actually paying for it. And I said, well, show me your invoice. Like, what are you paying for? And then, they'd go through, they call their accountant, and they wouldn't be able to find it. It would turn out they weren't. I mean, they just assumed that this thing actually existed, that was really interesting. So they would eventually buy into the idea once they realized they actually thought they were paying for something like this, and they realized it didn't even exist. The other side of it was meeting with people, especially real estate, more on the realtor side, who saw this as a threat to their livelihood.
Right.
So, realtors were up in arms. This can't be done. MLS already does this. And, MLS, and I'd be like, well, MLS doesn't do this.
Why did MLS not do that?
Now, builders can list new construction on MLS.
Why don't they?
There's a bunch of reasons.
Yeah.
One is it shows the price history. So, it's very hard to, with new construction.
It's 0 to $1 million.
Or you're increasing prices by the minute. A bunch of, you're in a sales day and you're constantly upping your prices. There's a thought that it looks... It looks like your company's your building isn't selling well if you have to go use MLS.
I see.
So there's a whole bunch of reasons.
Interesting.
Also, it's one of the great things about BuzzBuzzHome is that we are built for new construction. MLS is built for resale. And there's a huge difference between how you build those two search sites or discover sites. So that was another kind of, counterpoint where people were like, well, there's MLS. And I was like, well, that doesn't really work. Like it's there. Builders aren't using it. If you're a consumer and you want to buy a condo, if you try using MLS, one, you probably won't find anything new. But if you do, you won't even realize there's something launching right next door that it has better pricing and better incentives. So, getting, convincing those people was one thing. And if I couldn't convince them, I felt bad. I was like, am I making a mistake? But felt really strong in what we were doing.
So you got about a bunch of advice from people saying, it seems kind of like I'm doing it, or I don't know if this makes any sense.
Yeah.
But you're like, whatever. Yeah. And you just built something, or what?
Yeah, so it was that. I mean, it was literally like I should mention we had some great supporters, especially family, friends were great supporters. But both my partner and I really believed in it. These people who we knew that the kind of realtor who would see this as a threat wouldn't believe in it. And
you couldn't convert the people.
Yeah, so I really
obviously
didn't care. So we just went out. Met with a marketing firm. Our original name wasn't BuzzBuzzHome, it was Casa-Roo, which was Casa like a house, but with a K, Roo like a street, but R-O-O, and we were going to have this kangaroo with this little pouch of a house. And we got it to our marketing firm, and they said, okay, first order of business, you guys cannot be called Casa-Roo. Like, that is out of the question. Right. So we ended up coming up with BuzzBuzzHome. So Cliff and I had put together really detailed, it was like a 100-page spec doc of how the entire site would work, how every action would work, and we handed it off to the marketing firm. We're like, hey, create the designs, and we hired an engineer to build it out.
Again, did you validate? Like, so you're spending, were you in a dark room for a month just drawing things? Did you talk to people about, does this make sense to you?
No,
how did you validate
we just
that?
did it.
You just did it.
We just did it. We looked at other we looked at the websites we liked. So we were like, hey, I don't remember what websites they were at the time, but we were like, okay, website X has this really nice search bar. Check out Expedia's search bar. It's beautiful. Like so we kind of cut that and pasted into this document, and this company's map is really great. I really like the way, I think we were looking at hot pads at the time, which recently Zillow purchased. So we looked at their map. Like, I really like the way that this map, the user interacts with this map. So we'd cut that out and look at the little icons they use. So we ended up coming up with these designs. I think it was only like 3 pages worth of designs at the time. And then we built it and we launched it. And we, to be honest, when we launched it, it didn't work. I don't think if we launched today with what we had then, we
everyone always says that about their startup.
Yeah.
So just if you're tuning in now, this is Entrepreneurs in Small Rooms Drinking Coffee. I'm Rob Kennedy, and we're sitting here with Matthew Slutsky of BuzzBuzzHome. And we're talking, when we last left our heroes, we got to the sort of the etymology or the genesis of the very first iteration of your thing. So just before we move on from that, just one quick question. You outsource the development and the marketing to somebody else? No.
We outsource the design. To a marketing firm specializing in real estate. We did the development in-house, though.
So you hired people to do that. How did you fund that first kick at the can?
Yeah, so my partner and I both put in a lump sum. I don't remember what it was. Maybe it was 20 grand each or something at the time, and that was it.
You invested and you didn't take a salary, obviously, because you were
we didn't take salary until, I don't know, like 2 years ago. I mean, we're now up to 45 staff. I think we probably started taking salaries around 15 staff. We started actually.
How do you make that decision? How do you know now is the time to take salary?
I don't really know how it went about, but I know that I was down to my last, literally $200 in my savings account, and that was it. It was kind of like, we're either going to take salaries now, or I'm going to have to sell my condo and move out onto the street or something.
Right.
So it was at that point where I think it just worked out really well that at the time that I actually ran out of money, we had enough revenue that we were able to take a really small salary. I mean, we're talking we were able to take pennies, but at least that was something. I mean, our idea was, we really believe in this. Let's just put everything into the company. I mean, if we can't afford food at the time, who cares? We just need to hire more. We need more engineers. It's something that we're still facing today. We just need more engineers. We need more everything. Let's just invest everything that we're making into this thing and just push it as fast as possible.
So you launched the first version. Did you get feedback immediately, or how did you get the customers to kind of sign on? There was people who were kind of helping you through, or
so we got really lucky.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was lucky. I was able to secure some clients really, even though our site wasn't working great. Even though our site wasn't working, people still believed in what we were doing. So maybe we were only we now get, I don't know, 400,000 unique visitors a month. We were maybe getting 1,000 or 1,500 a month.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that 1,500 is still qualified purchasers. So, or potential purchasers. I mean, there's nothing to do on BuzzBuzzHome other than find your new home at the time. Yes. So those 1,500 people could have purchased at a new condo. So I was able to bring on a few clients really early on that at least gives us some cash flow. I mean, I always remember getting our first $500 check, and Cliff and I went down to the builders to pick it up, and we ran back home to deposit it into the bank because we were actually working at a Cliff's home at the time, and we forgot the check at their office. So we ran back down. But it was still, that was $500 that we made that never existed. We kind of created this thing that was making money. It was kind of pretty amazing. So we were able to early on to bring on a few clients, and we were making, I don't know, $5,000 a month maybe, which was able to, it didn't cover all of our costs, but it was able to at least cover some of our costs. And then just kept building out our base from there of builders.
So that's really interesting. I think when you look at a sort of a two-sided thing like that, where you've got people who want to sell stuff and people who want to buy the things that they are selling, effectively that's a sort of a marketplace style business model. And oftentimes I've seen that, getting the sellers isn't super hard necessarily, because if you can convince them that they're going to speak to the qualified audience, then that's great. It's often getting the masses to come in the first place. That seems to be the hard part of the marketplace to seed, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's funny, there's two parts to that question. I'll start with getting people to actually come onto the site.
It's my specialty.
BuzzBuzzHome, again, nothing existed in the sphere that we were doing. So the public was really hungry for this information. Also, again, remember, this wasn't on ML. This information wasn't on MLS.
So you just couldn't find it.
Realtors, even though at first they poo-pooed the idea, they actually needed us really quickly because we had the best information that was out there in the early days. So if a new condo was launching, they had no idea how to get that information other than coming through us. So word spread really quickly.
Word of mouth word?
Word of mouth. Oh yeah, and to this day we really rely heavily on word of mouth, PR, and we do very little in advertising. So we were able to get the masses on pretty quickly. And then the builder side, I hate saying this because it's so cheesy, but it's hustling. I mean, I remember again bringing on that first or second client. Whenever users were on our site, I'd be checking out where they came from. You can use Google Analytics or I think we were using Woopra at the time.
Okay.
I'm actually able to see where they were coming from. So I remember all of a sudden I saw.
You mean geographically where they
were? Yeah, no, actually company name. It would actually show me yeah. So I remember looking and somebody from Citizen Developments is on our site. So I was like, oh my God, Cliff, someone from the developers on our site right now. And then he actually clicked they request more information on a builder, on a development, to his own site. So then he actually was testing out the site. So I was now able to actually see like who this person was. And then the next day, I think I called him pretending to be really ignorant. I was like, or emailed him being like, "Dear Mr. Crignano, I saw that you requested information on a project yesterday. I just wanted to see if you got feedback, if you heard back from the builder or whatnot." And he responded, "I am the builder." And I was like, "Well, I'd love to tell you more about our company." So I went in and met with him the next day and brought him on as a client. So I mean, again, the early days, it's hustling. I mean, it's just going to every real estate event that I could. Just cold calling builders. The other nice thing about the building industry is it's like kind of herding sheep. Like this first by the time we got like 10 clients, everybody started talking about us.
I see.
So
that first 10 was critical.
Yeah, the first 10 to get, all of a sudden, they're doing deals through our site. So they're making like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
They've paid us like pennies in advertising, and word gets out. Like these guys just did a deal and they pretty much paid nothing in advertising. Like what is this? So builders all of a sudden started really coming to us. Marketing firms started coming to us, being like, "We want to feature our clients' projects." So word of mouth, I guess, from both sides.
And then how did you come up with a pricing structure? I mean, probably when they're making hundreds of $1,000s, you're making $50 on it. I'm making this up, but you're like, "Oh shit, you can probably,
So our original vision was to charge $2,000 a month per development. When we went to market, we quickly dropped that down to $500 a month per development. And now
went down.
Yeah, we went down because it was just, again, builders at the time just didn't understand technology. I mean, I went into a meeting once and the builder had asked me how to turn on his computer so I could show him how to use the site. He had never, I remember once we sent a lead to a builder and we couldn't find the builder's email. So somebody requested information on a project. We couldn't find the email because our system's automated on how to send that request to the builder. So we called the sales center and we're like, "We need the email address." And they said, "Oh, we actually don't have email addresses. Can you fax it to us?" And we're like, "No, our system doesn't work that way. Go find yourself an email address. When you do, we'll send you the lead." And they never did. And the purchaser actually ended up purchasing at a development next to theirs because they, whatever. So builders really are technologically pretty in advanced. And to be honest, I don't really know where I was going with this whole in advance.
So okay, I get it. So you found a way. You clearly found a problem. You clearly found you've got your first 10 customers by just constantly staying up until you found them. You built the first version of the site, which was okay enough, and you continue to iterate, I guess, as you got feedback. And you managed to get customers on the site. I mean, like their customers, because it was you met an unmet need in the market. So how did you? What happened since then? Because I mean, I think a lot of the people who come on the show are pretty early stage, who sort of just figuring things out. So clearly, you found your fit, and it was doing enough business that you're like, "This is where we're going to focus." So then, what do you do for the next couple year or 2 years? You just keep growing?
Yeah.
How do you move forward?
I kind of remember where I was before with that last question. So I'll just quickly answer that.
Go ahead.
So I think a builder, we said, "Okay, we're $2,000 a month," and they were like, "Well, I'll try it for $500 a month." And we're like, "Okay, that's our new price. We're $500 a month."
Right.
And then every year from there, we just increased our price by $100. So we're now at $900 a month.
Right.
And then in January will be $1,000 a month.
And actually, just to clarify, so you told me this earlier. You list everything that's on the market, and you pay to be featured.
So that's one of the really unique things about BuzzBuzzHome is that we list everything across North America. Every project is listed across North America.
And that data comes from where?
From our own. We have a data team of people who we give a few methods. One is they actually call sales centers or go to sales centers, like with like your price list, whatever. Another method is we actually get direct feeds from builders, so builders can actually give us direct feed.
Okay.
Then we can actually go out in the U.S. and you can actually buy feeds, and you're buying a feed of all all real estate transactions, basically. So our team takes that. It throws out 99% of it, which is resale, keeps that last 1%, cleans that information, gets it on our site, scrubs it clean, gets it on our site. So those are kind of our main ways that we actually get the information.
It's like MLS in the sense that you have a unique data set that no one else has.
Exactly.
And that's one of your value props to the universe.
Is that nobody else has
nobody
that.
Else
So yes, we list everything, and then builders are able to feature their project, which gets them extra visibility across the site, but doesn't bias the actual quality of information. So their quality will be the exact same as their competitors, even though they're paying us. Right. But we're able to, we specialize in, we're a marketing firm in a way. We're able to get them eyeballs on their project. And then if people buy, amazing. If people don't buy, well, I'm not a sales company. I don't care. I was able to get the eyeballs. If you're priced way too high, too bad for you. Right. But I got you the eyeballs that were needed. So to answer your other question, when I launched this, I was really naive, and I thought, okay, we're going to launch this. It'll be Cliff and I. Maybe we'll have one researcher, and we'll be a team of 3, and we're going to make hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe billions of dollars with just the 3 of us. Yeah. Really quickly, I realized, I need a lot of people, and that need hasn't stopped. Over the past 5 years, it's growing out the company and trying to manage between, how many engineers do we need? How many people on product do we need? How many designers do we need? How many project managers do we need? And we have a full news team. We have a news team of 6 people, of journalists who write for our news site, news.buzzbuzzhome.com. We have it's content
marketing. Is that the idea behind that?
No, it's actually just content.
I see.
It's news.
It's like insights into the space
real estate and technology, and just really cool publication that we started.
So if you're just tuning in, this is Entrepreneurs in Small Rooms Drinking Coffee. I'm your host, Rob Kennedy, and we're talking to Matthew Slutsky of BuzzBuzzHome, amongst other things. You've got a going concern. You're growing in Canada. You're just kind of bringing on new people to deal with all the data. You're bringing on new customers who have data. And then how do you choose to expand? You said you went to the States or in Vancouver. How do you choose to expand, and when do you say now is the time? Because that costs money and takes a lot of effort and might divert your focus from...
For sure. So we started in downtown Toronto. Again, we're high-rise and low-rise, so we're everything new. Started in downtown Toronto. We did well here. We expanded out kind of into the suburbs to cover off the low-rise, and we were in the GTA. And then we were one day, okay, we went to our research team, which I think was 2 people at the time. We're how long would it take you to get all the information in Vancouver and keep it up to date? I'm we could probably do this in a week or 2. So, okay, let's do it. Let's get all the, let's just add Vancouver to BuzzBuzzHome because it's Vancouver. It's awesome. It's a big city. So they did that. They added Vancouver really quickly. I think they did it in a few days. And then they started working on keeping it up to date along with, the other thing is once you get the information, it's not over. Then pretty much every few days, you got to make sure that the prices haven't changed and if there's new inventory. So then they were keeping that up to date. And we started getting traffic pretty much immediately. So, I made a few calls, just kind of cold called some builders and brought on a few clients, in that first week or 2. Okay, this is awesome. We're now making money in Vancouver.
Yes.
How long will it take us to do Calgary? So then we did Calgary, then we did Edmonton, and then the next thing you know, our little team of 4 or whatever can't keep these things up to date. So now all of a sudden, okay, great, we've got these new clients in Vancouver, we've got new clients in Calgary, we've got new clients in Edmonton. So we're making money. Let's actually now hire another 5 researchers to keep all this up to date.
Right.
And the idea with Canada was let's just target the biggest cities and then kind of work out to the small cities. So that's how we did kind of Canada. And then we had Canada, and we were doing really well in Canada. We were getting really well known. And we were okay, if we want to make it, Canada compared to the US is teeny. Let's take over the United States. So what do you do when you want to take over the United States? You listen to that song. If you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere.
Right.
So, we did no data research. We just said, okay, let's open an office in New York. So we sent 2 of our key staff down to New York for the summer to get us an office and to start hiring people. So we set up this office in New York.
So based on Frank Sinatra, you decided, no research, Frank Sinatra suggested, okay.
Frank Sinatra said if we could do it in New York, we can do it anywhere. So we did it in New York, and it's really tough. We quickly realized
because why?
Because in Canada, we were, I forget the saying, we were the big fish in the small pond.
Yeah.
In New York, we were not even a fish yet. Like we were still like a little.
But did that solution exist in America land? Or?
No, it did in some ways. It didn't exist well.
Like things like Truly and stuff didn't have that offering at the time, or did they?
There's huge companies like Zillow, Trulia, and they really, the interesting thing is they specialize in resale.
Yes.
And what they did is they specialized in resale because that's where you see the huge commissions are, it's where the huge advertising. There's more transactions, and at the time, remember Canada's real estate market has been booming.
Right.
Since we started, the United States, the market in the United States, especially in new construction, has completely crashed.
Yes.
So these companies started on the resale side, and then kind of I think somewhere along the way they were like, oh, there's this thing called new construction. Let's just add it to our site
because it's the same.
And that's one of the really unique things about BuzzBuzzHome is we realized that it's not at all the same. The way that the site has to be built is completely different. The way people research is completely different. The way you list is completely different. You look at resale. Let's say you live in a condo or a subdivision or wherever you live. If you put your house up for sale, or your home up for sale, that's one unit within a big building. We're actually listing the huge building with 500 individual units. So it's a completely different system.
Yeah.
So what those companies did is they kind of said, okay, we'll add new construction and we'll add a little filter. So if you're searching, once you've done the search, you can go to the filter and click new construction.
Right.
Didn't work. So there was no good solutions when we came into the US.
Got it.
But
what year was this approximately?
I don't know, 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
After the crash.
Yeah, things were starting to look good in the US.
Right.
Again, in the real estate world. So it's been really tough, and it still is really tough. I mean, I, to be honest, expected to be way further in the U.S. than we are right now. In fact, we just sent our executive VP from our Toronto office. We just relocated her to New York for an indefinite amount of time. She might be there for a few years to really not just take over New York, but really to work on our entire U.S. expansion plan and how we're going to strategize for that.
Would you pick New York again if you had to do it again? Would you say New York is the first place, or is it just it's inevitably hard and it doesn't matter where you start?
It's a great question. We still kind of believe in the philosophy if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. So it's been tough, but we will make it.
It just seems to me like New York doesn't have new construction-y things. Maybe I'm naive.
No, they do. But not like in Canada.
Like, how the West Coast, the West Coast of the States is, a totally different story where they built all that new stuff and then it's just empty. Yeah.
So the reality is Texas actually has the most new construction in the United States. So in one way we could have gone to Texas. The Miami market is most similar to the Toronto market.
Is it?
So we could have gone to Miami. But again, New York is the center of the world. I mean,
right.
So we need to be there.
And given that you guys, part of your value prop, I think he said, is that you help sort of position those guys, the developers for sale. New York seems to be a logical place for
sure.
Positioning, you know what I mean? Like that's 100%. Where you think of, are you going to sell my stuff? Well, New York would be the place to psychologically sell it.
Yeah. Now, I should also mention that at the time when we did that, we only had information in New York. And then from there, we were like, okay, let's now get information on, same way that we did Canada, let's now get information in Miami. Very quickly, so our kind of idea with expansion at that time, and might sound really silly, but it was kind of what we were doing, is we kind of saw it as let's open up offices where I want to go. So I love going to New York.
Yes.
And for a while I was going every other Wednesday to New York just for the day. So it makes sense. It's a great place. I love New York. It's like my favorite place in the world. Let's open up an office there. And I was like, okay, well, I also love going to Vegas a few times a year. Let's open up maybe we'll open up an office in Vegas okay. So that strategy never went forward. But we did get listings in Miami, and we did get listings across Florida and Texas. And now what we do is we actually have all the listings. We actually have the most. BuzzBuzzHome is the largest listing of new construction in North America. We have the most listings out of anybody across. More than all the big players out there. So now we have listings across everywhere. It's really a different strategy because now we can actually look. How are people actually utilizing our site? Maybe we're actually getting thousands of people a month in Idaho, even though we never expected Idaho. Maybe that is the next logical place for us to open up an office? Maybe it is at San Francisco.
Yeah.
So we're now able to actually analyze our big data internally.
That's cool.
To figure out where we're going next and where to target next. And that's something that, again, we sent our EVP, Kyoko, down there to do.
That's pretty cool, actually. And as we sort of wrap up, this is Entrepreneurs in Small Rooms Drinking Coffee. I'm Rob Kennedy, and we're with Matthew Slutsky of BuzzBuzzHome. I think what you described is gut data. So you're like, gut New York. Now we have now we're in the States. Let's use data to figure out, how to optimize the decision that we made, and then you have to make a gut decision based on data.
100%.
And that's kind of how it works.
I think it's. I know we're low on time, but it definitely is gut data, but gut with some critical odds. I mean, again, New York. Gut said New York, but not only did gut say New York. I mean, New York is New York. I mean, again, Frank Sinatra wrote a song. Like,
I get it.
We had strong evidence that New York is the place to be from Frank.
Yeah, the Dust Bowl might not have been the place to bet your chips. So you what's also interesting about you guys is you accidentally created a creative agency. And you're about to launch other products too. So maybe without going into too much detail about what they are, your path forward is clearly customer acquisition. And okay, so there's two questions I have for you. One is, how do you maintain focus? People were coming to you. You told me before we talked this morning for marketing help. So hey, we'll take your money. How do you not divert that from your core focus? And then you have other ideas while you're doing this. So how do you stay focused on BuzzBuzzHome, but then meet the need that the market's sort of throwing at you?
Yeah. So to answer the first one, so we also have a digital agency called 88 Creative. Mm-hmm. And now when we launched BuzzBuzzHome, again, we were bootstrapped. We still are bootstrapped, and we never did raise any money. So it was at the time when the social world was really taking off. So we thought, okay, let's not do any advertising. Let's just utilize social. Let's really push hard on Twitter, on Facebook, on any other outlet that's out there. Come up with a cool strategy to actually get our name out there and get word of mouth going. So we did that. And to this day, that's our main focus. I mean, maybe we spend $5,000 a month on Google ads or whatever, or some other ads, but really social. So through that, builders started seeing what we were doing at BuzzBuzzHome and being like, I love what you're doing. I tried getting my receptionist to launch the Twitter, and she's already been in 5 fights. Can you actually come in and do this? Right. So from that, we're like, okay, sure, we will help. And then we only did this with our closest clients, because it's so heavily dependent on relationships and really close communication. So our closest clients we would do this for. So we had one client start, so we hired someone who could kind of help them. All of a sudden, another builder, another one of our close clients was like, hey, we want you to do this. Next thing you knew, we were representing the biggest builders across Ontario, running their entire online campaigns, doing digital creative for them. So at some point we kind of said, okay, this we kind of did this for fun. Like, it was kind of a side thing just to keep some clients happy and keep them involved with BuzzBuzzHome, to being this is actually a full-fledged organization that it is its own company. So we launched it off as 88 Creative, and it's its own.
Why not just stop doing that? Why start another business?
Well, it's a great question. I think one of the reasons is a lot of these people that we were running their accounts for were our close clients. So I didn't want to screw them. I didn't want to be like, screw you, we're now out of here. Right. So I wanted to keep it going from that perspective. We brought on Aaron Burry to run 88 Creative. So I don't need to be that involved in it. I know that we've got a great lead on it.
It's fantastic.
And it makes money. I mean, in a way I see, for our U.S. expansion, Canada is almost, we never raise money. Canada's kind of our VC. Canada pumps us money, which allows us to put huge amounts of money into our U.S. growth and to be constantly bettering our product. 88 Creative is part of that engine. I mean, it is creating revenue. So it's able to kind of pump into our entire system.
That actually was going to be basically my last question, because we're almost out of time. We're really out of time. So how do you avoid, there's the narrative in this universe of startup coolness that you should come up with an idea, and then when you have some semblance of an idea, you should take venture capital and give up 93% of your company. You've managed to not do that. That's quote unquote weird.
Yeah. So
how do you manage to keep that going?
One, it's really tough. I mean, there's so many. We could do like a 10-hour. We could turn this into a 10-hour radio
Part
show.
2.
There's one thing is that we again I came from within the industry, so I knew that there is going to be a market for this. Mm-hmm. And now after we started getting success, we had a lot of competitors kind of pop up out of nowhere and think that they could do what we were doing. They didn't know the industry at all. Like they didn't have any. They just kind of saw that we were making money, so they'll try and
put up a website and
So some of them raised money, some of them raised funding, but they never were able to take off because they didn't actually know what they were doing.
Right.
That's kind of one aspect of it. Is actually like not just thinking like, oh, this microphone I'm looking at, maybe I could design it a little bit better, even though I'm not an audiophile, guy, I'm not a designer, whatever. Like I can't just be like, hey, well, my snow needs shoveling. I'm going to start an Uber for snow shoveling. Like, great idea, Matt.
Right.
So again, if I was in the snow shoveling industry, and then maybe I'd have a basis for that. So I think one thing is that we actually, our background is real estate and actually knew what we were doing. The other thing is, we constantly have people pitching us ideas for companies they want to start. Cliff and I are constantly coming up with new ideas. Some of them, I not toot my own horn, but I think are really brilliant ideas. But we refuse to diverge. We've done it once before, and I know we're almost out of time.
Yeah.
We did it once before, and it hurt BuzzBuzzHome.
Yeah.
So we decided we will not do that again. We will not spread both my time and Cliff's time too thin. To hurt BuzzBuzzHome.
Because that's hard because, as an entrepreneur, you're by nature creative and want to create things in the universe. And once you focus on something for a really long time, you start to be, hey, look, shiny new thing, shiny. That's really,
But you can always keep that going by, again, once got monotonous in Canada, shiny new thing is the United States. 10 times the size, 10 times the revenue, 10 times...
and it's not the same market, right? Like it's
completely
different. So you have to learn...
It is completely different. I mean, it's like we've entered a whole new startup.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think we're kind of out of time. Thank you very much for your time. I guess we'll have to somehow carry on the conversation. Thanks to Matthew Slutsky from BuzzBuzzHome. Check out their site. They've got a lot of cool stuff going on. This was Entrepreneurs in Small Rooms Drinking Coffee. It was produced today by Nick Kuhn, as usual, and we're at the working group. Thank you for hosting us, and stay tuned next week. We'll be talking to Organics Live, maybe slightly later in the morning for those who have trouble getting up at 8. Thank you.